Welcome everyone to the Nerd Nook. I'm your host Evan Teague. With me like always is my fellow Cape Crusader, Noah Bailey. I don't have a Batman shirt. I have a black and yellow one, so it's
Close enough.
themed. Yeah, I don't have any nerd shirts. It's fine. So, so we've been saying for close to 3 years now, over the span of this podcast, that why doesn't Warner Brothers just let the fans make a superhero movie? We've read the comics, we've seen the shows, we know these characters so well that we believe that we can make these movies better than those people actually making movies.
We do.
So,
very deeply.
So we thought, why don't we try to make a Batman movie? So the initial plan was for both of us to just kind of have a basic, skeleton or even like full-on script of our Batman movies and exchange notes and just have a fun time going over what we believe would be the best way to show the Batman on the big screen, like what we believe would be the ideal Batman story. But Noah went a little crazy and made an entire 10 season show.
Okay. In my defense, it's hard because there's a lot going on with Batman. There's a lot, and I can't because the thing with movies is I can kind of make movies, but some stuff's gonna have to fall in, or you're just gonna need a lot of flashbacks, or whatever how movies work, because it's just you can only do so much in 2 hours or however long your movie is. And I've always personally really liked, I guess, shows more than movies because character development is more gradual, it's more natural. It's not just, oh, he's big now, or oh, he's responsible now. It's kind of you see examples of a character changing over time, and I think that's very important in anything, but especially in Batman, because you literally, because if you're making a Batman movie, it's one movie there's just Batman, and one movie, oh, now there's a Robin, you know what I'm saying? It just kind of shows up, and I feel with this, it's kind of just you need to see how this happens. And granted, sometimes it'll be rushed more than others, but sometimes that builds towards the plot, why that's done, or what the motive is, and also just the more episodes. I feel in a movie, you can't have too many villains because, as we all know, we've seen movies. I'm looking at you, Amazing Spider-Man 2, where you have 3, 4, 5 villains kind of just all thrown together, and then you're just I think the conflict is the writing at this point. I don't even know what's going on.
Unless it's a superhero team-up film, if the Legion of Doom were the villain of Justice League movie, that will be fine because there's enough heroes to facilitate that many villains. But if it's just randomly Poison Ivy, Mr. Freeze, and Bane working together, that doesn't make sense.
Just no connection. You know what I'm saying? Or just I don't know. And it's interesting because in some ways I think it can work because the Sinister Six, for example, I think could work.
Yeah.
But even that in a movie, I feel those characters need to have their own kind of individual attention before that can happen, because if you're trying to set up or develop characters all at the same time, it kind of just makes it way too convoluted.
Yeah,
and that's why
they all just started out and you had to develop all of them 3 times in the first 30 minutes and just hope we get it. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. And it's okay, one, what are the odds 4 supervillains just all decide, you know what, today's the day. And second of all, now you've got all these characters, you got to have some investment in the characters. Not saying you have to root for the villains, but you need to feel something for them. But if there's 4 of them, it's kind of hard to, and it just kind of it just feels very rushed, and that's why I feel with a series, especially with a Rogues Gallery as ginormous as Batman. Because literally, you've got multiple S tier villains, multiple H. There's a lot of it. There's the pyramid goes through the sky. It's ridiculous. And it's kind of the point where it's if I just make a movie, I'm gonna make I gotta get the Joker in there, but I can also get Ra's al Ghul is a great villain. Oh, but this is a great oh man, but what about Deathstroke? Oh, dude, the Court of Owls is so cool. There's so much going on, and sometimes the villains are just yourself. It's crazy. And there's so much going on, and I feel like it's just. I know I'm rambling. I'm sorry. I do
No, that's
that. This is
fine.
gonna. It's gonna be some of this,
We
but
are.
we are live. It's fine.
We got
But,
time. We're
like,
passionate about this. Just do
we
what
are
is
no, but
necessary.
it's just great because it's like you have to give everything its respect, and I understand that like after 80 years of comics, that
Mm,
like yeah, characters have had time where they're developed, and you're dealing with most of these characters, but at the same time, I feel like by just kind of throwing them in movies, with you have to establish the character, the main character, the supporting characters, the villains, all this stuff in 2 hours. It's kind of like there's no time for all of it to be done well, in my
mm.
opinion. So that's why I feel like a series is better
Okay.
because yeah. Okay, so but anyway,
You
obviously
can
movies
start.
are still awesome,
Yeah.
but
You can start with just tell me about this series that you've concocted.
okay, yeah, okay. So basically, we start. It's a Batman series, so obviously we start with Batman. I'm not gonna do the whole crime alley parents. Like
At least
it
not
will
yet.
be
Yeah.
referenced, obviously. I think
Mm,
Bruce will have like a display. Like he'll like in his house have like the portrait over the fireplace, have his mom's pearls on display and stuff like that.
mm.
But like we're not gonna like flashback to little kid because like we're at the point. If you don't know Batman's origin story, not you don't not know about Batman. You just don't know about fictional characters. I mean, that's the most
Yeah.
iconic. I mean, honestly, I would say that's probably the most well-known origin story of any character. Honestly,
Either
so
that or Uncle Ben, but like they're basically the
like
same, like
even
same
yeah, like
general idea. So like you get it.
right, like everyone knows. People who don't even like Batman know this. So like we
Mm.
don't need to explain. Oh, how did Bruce Wayne get so detached from the world? Oh, I wonder why. Like so, basically, I kind of want to open it, and what like a lot of the better stories I've noticed in recent memory have done is
Mm-hmm.
they don't like start out, oh, Batman, like, fresh out the cave year one. It's kind of, you're already kind of established.
Mm-hmm.
And like something that I really like that like the Spider-Man game a couple years ago did is like when you first start, you're like at the climax of a story that you kind of just show up in.
Oh, I
And I think
love
that's
that. I
really cool.
love that.
Right?
Oh my goodness, it's so good.
Exactly. I think that's a really great idea. You just show, he's like going after the King Man. He got this big boss fight out of nowhere. Like, okay, we're doing this.
First five
And I
minutes,
think
yeah,
that's
you're just
important to
in the
start.
thick of it. I love it.
Right, and that's what I think, and that's what I want to do with Bruce Wayne here. I want Bruce Wayne. He original, obviously he's like 8, 10, depending on who you ask. When his parents die, leaves Gotham, travels the world, becomes Batman.
Yeah.
Basically, comes back to Gotham City. I'll say he's gone for about 10. I put 10 years on my thing,
Mm-hmm.
so he's like 20 when he gets back, but he can't just immediately become Batman because
Yeah.
one, you ain't got time for that, and two, that's really suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
It's really sus. So like, you gotta. I know. I had to. I'm
Yep.
sorry. I'm a
I've
child.
been playing. Yeah.
But anyway, so it takes him about a year or two to like and this is all kind of just like hinted at in the show, but it's like it takes him a year or two to get things established, get his equipment, find out best means of becoming said Batman,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. So basically, the story jumps in. He's 25, so he's been Batman for about 2 years already.
Mm-hmm.
The gang wars are basically going wild. So you've got Falcone, you've got Maroni dividing the city up. Who wants what? Who wants what?
Mm-hmm.
Batman beats the crap out of guys, puts them in jail, but they get back out because
Yep.
the cops are on the payroll. I mean, it's the classic. We
Mm-hmm.
bag them, but they don't. And Batman feels like, why am I even doing this? Because if as soon as I get them out, the DA is gonna throw them right back on the street because, oh, sorry, there's no substantial evidence for a vigilante, which everyone kind of doesn't even like Batman because he's kind of making it harder. But then
Yep.
it's like, I mean, would you want kids to have drugs? So like, so it's that more. So basically, Batman has to one decide the inner conflict of, okay, so should I still doing this? Is this the right move, or should Bruce Wayne actually do more good than Batman can? Because Bruce Wayne, although obviously it's not a crime fighter per se, can invest in child homes for troubled kids. He can work just to get down the street, clean up the city, the
Yes.
humanitarian route. And I think
Yes.
that's a very important aspect of Batman that's not really thought about a
Yes.
lot.
I think that aspect of Batman should be explored a lot more generally because Batman, just kind of in pop culture, is a very divisive character because Bruce Wayne is one of the richest people on the planet and he could just buy Gotham and like fix everything. But because of the comic book, it needs to be more, it needs to be more action heavy and stuff. So like, obviously, he uses that wealth to punch people. Like that's
Yeah.
him. Bruce Wayne actually helping people specifically should be done more. And some of my favorite moments in Batman comics are when he does that. Like one of my favorites is I remember Sal killing, but like some mob boss is just like sitting in a random room, and he's like, once Batman gets in here, all of you shoot him, like all like, get ready to shoot. And Batman just like casually like knocks on the door and just like walks in with a flash drive, sticks it into the computer. It was like on the projector screen. It's like, hi, I'm Bruce Wayne. All of you in this room right here can like I am offering everyone in this room right here a job at Wayne Industries just so you can help feed your family because I have a feeling this job isn't paying well. So you can either try shooting Batman now and see where that gets you, or come work for me. And they all just leave.
Oh, wait. Because honestly, I mean, the job you might get a payday, but you're probably gonna end up in the hospital anyway.
Or dead. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you work for Bruce Wayne. He's like, oh man, he's looking over things like, dude, this got dental in this plan. I kind of think that, it's like,
Batman took my teeth out last week. I could use this. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's like, yeah, 2 weeks on vacation. I can get out of here. Yeah, man. I hear Metropolis is great this time of year. Like, or whatever.
Yeah. And like, especially if like at the point in the universe where it's already established that Bruce Wayne like funds Batman's stuff without it being suspicious for some reason.
Yeah.
Like doing stuff like that, I feel is really cool. So
yeah, and I think like you said, I feel like that's very not talked about as much because honestly, Bruce Wayne is just available as an asset as Batman is in some ways because again, like you said, he has influence, he knows people, he's he's very famous, their way, and he can just be like, hey, you want to still be a criminal or you want to just work for me, and I think that's an important aspect and also adds a lot to his character because like I was kind of torn with kind of how to do Bruce Wayne as a character because I like how like in the Christian Bale movies Christian Bale movies they like he has like multiple kind of personas. He's the very much like rich snooty party boy drunk all the time. I don't know who was in the car, but there's also kind of the guy trying to do better for Gotham humanitarian. There's also obviously Batman. And like trying to mix these and display which ones depending on who's appropriate, I think is very important because I think it's important to like basically. I know this is gonna be so, but like Bruce Wayne's trying to be like a Chad. Like he's a guy he's like the cool guy and like rich, all this stuff, but he also just does genuinely care about people. But he's also can occasionally be kind of a douche just because that sometimes when you're rich stuff happens. But he is generally kind of caring for people. And I think that's important because he's still young. The dude lost his parents, disappeared. Everyone's like, man, he probably, he's like, Bruce, where'd you go? It's like, I was lost. And then he's like, and then I met a lady. And then I met another one. And then like, he's like, and I found him. Just like stories like that. And just like, he's just a good, he's just a good guy to be around. But he's a funny guy. But like, he is a guy you see is generally trying to make the city better, but he kind of just has that like, nah, this dude's too much of a party, or this dude's too like full of himself, or this dude just doesn't have the wit,
Yeah.
He's just, he doesn't really go to school, so he's just kind of, this dude's just a kid. So I think that's really good and underrated, and I think that's an aspect that I kind of wanted to like own for the entire thing, like Bruce Wayne as integral as a character as Batman, because I think that's something that's very overlooked, because it's just like, okay, Bruce Wayne just never comes outside, and then Batman's always beating up people. Like, people have to be like wondering where you're at, like, like you don't just disappear. Like, I know he's not like, a huge A-list celebrity, but like at least in Gotham he's the most famous person. So like people are gonna be like, he can't. And I kind of like the idea of like the whole like Great Gatsby thing where like he throws huge parties when he's never there, which I'm kind of like yes and no, because I feel like he needs to make appearances, but like
just like appear at the very beginning of the night and then escape.
Yeah,
the mansion
something
is
like
so
that.
Big that like you're like, oh, he's in the other room, and then he's not.
Right, he's in the other room, or like, oh, he got called away on business, or oh, he's probably in the back with some girl, or you know what I'm saying? Like something like a very believable alibi, and Alfred's like, oh, I wouldn't go back there, and they're like, or something like, and I think that's very much a good persona for him. But anyway, I know that was a lot about Bruce Wayne. I
Nope,
know.
that's great.
But anyway, okay. So yeah, basically, he returned at 20. Try to build up that reputation, kind of just the party cool guy. And then, he notices crime's like terrible. He's like, okay, how am I going to do this? What's my first move? He's like, okay, probably drugs. So like after a couple of years, he's working against them, but he's trying to figure out how to best get the cops to kind of do their jobs because obviously they're on the take.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, all right, how can I do this? And what Batman does is he decides that the only way to make sure there's good cops is to get rid of the bad cops. So he kind of, like, I don't want to say attacks the cops, but, like, very much, like, works to get on, or what's the word? Like, on the take, or crooked cops, that's the word. Crooked cops busted. So he kind of, like, sabotages them. He may or may not beat them up a couple times,
Is at this point in the story, is Jim Gordon just a lieutenant?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
Perfect.
We have Commissioner Loeb is the guy, is the big guy who is on the take. Got other guys, and the thing, and what's important is you've got Jim Gordon, who's like at this point like lieutenant or maybe even captain. Like I don't know how the ranking, but like not there yet. Just kind of a guy just got promoted.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got Montoya and he's got Bullock, and they're like the two people they've been in the academy together since day one. He trusts them; they're good, they're cool. But everyone else is they're kind of fighting this battle, and it feels like they're fighting themselves half the time because the cops are the problem. And that's kind of a subsequent storyline that we kind of follow as well because it's important to see how the aspects of justice are found in multiple ways. And in the same way, we've got the DA. What is the name I found? Carl Finch, who he's kind of mentioned in the Nolan movies also. I don't know if he has a comic origin, but that was the only other DA I could find before Harvey.
Okay.
And I have Harvey as the ADA, and that's important because I think when the DA gets kind of found out for corruption, Bruce and Harvey work together. He's obviously funds his campaigning. They become friends. They're cool, and that's really important for later, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and mostly in like the first season, it's pretty much figuring out how to get the cops going the right way and also how to stop the gang war. Well, the gangs kind of have all right, guys, we hate each other, but we hate Batman more. So obviously, we got to do something about it. And they're like, well, what do? We could do this. Or we could bring in someone to help us out. There's a couple guys we hear about. And then this is kind of where it kind of, in a way, kind of is like Arkham Origins. They don't bring in a bunch of assassins, but they all right, what can we do? Who can we bring in? They go through a list, and they decide, you know what? This guy costs a lot of money, but we'll try him. And, of course, they get Deathstroke because it's Deathstroke.
Yeah.
And everyone loves Deathstroke. And I like having Slade because Slade is, first of all, Slade's freaking awesome. We all know this. Mm-hmm. But it's also important because at the time, unbeknownst to Batman, at this time, kind of I don't know how I didn't do a lot of research as to how accurate this was, but I know in the like animated movies recently, Slade is currently the person Ra's al Ghul is thinking about grooming to take his place, and that's important because at the end of this season, when Batman obviously eventually defeats Slade, takes him out, Ra's al Ghul's like, "My successor was defeated."
Oh, that's
that's a whole, and again, it's not a lot. It's not a lot, but it's just enough that you kind of see this like interesting. It's not. They don't give you much, but it's just enough that you think about it.
Because I like the fact that Ra's al Ghul has always like had his eye on Bruce Wayne, and at least in some continuities, Bruce Wayne trained with Ra's while he was doing his escapades. But in this, him not really caring as much about Batman until he beat his second in command.
Right.
He's like actually worthy of this. Like I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I thought you might. I did too. I really think that's important because one, that makes Deathstroke's vendetta against Batman so much bigger than just the guy I couldn't kill. It's like the guy, you took everything from me, and Bruce is like, hey man, I don't want this either, but I'm gonna beat you anyway. And that's introduced in Ra's al Ghul. Obviously, that introduced in Natalia also, but we'll get to that later. Okay. And that's a whole thing going on, and that's season one. I'm a little like I had an issue like, okay, when to sprinkle in big villains, because I don't want to just go, okay, mob boss, and Long Halloween. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, it kind of want to like
Gotta
gradually
ease into
add
Long
them in.
Halloween. You can't just yeah.
Yeah, you can't just like go from like Rupert Thorne to every villain. You know what I'm saying? Like you
Yeah,
have to
I feel like
build
Long
up.
Halloween is like a 3-part season finale type thing.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to go for because like I didn't want to just throw it in there because it is an earlier Batman storyline. Because
Yeah,
like
because
it's
that's
like you
when
know
Harvey Dent becomes Two Face, right?
right, exactly, right, and that's why I think it's important to have Harvey established and everything, and have and like, and I want to make Harvey a likable character. Like one of the reasons that like it works so well in The Dark Knight is like you really like Harvey the
Mm.
whole movie until it happens. You really like Harvey. Harvey's really working hard, and in this case, he's kind of the guy. It's kind of like Anakin in Clone Wars. You'll love the dude to death, but you
Mm-hmm.
know what's going to happen,
Yes.
and that's kind of how you feel about Harvey because you love the guy. He does a great job. He gets his boss fired because he's on the take that he's the new DA thanks to Bruce, and
Mm-hmm.
he promotes Gordon because Gordon's like, hey, these guys helped me too. Gordon's up, Gordon gets up. He's not commissioner, but he's like moving up the ranks very slowly. And
Mm-hmm.
criminals are actually going to jail.
Yeah.
but then Deathstroke escapes, and you're like, how, and like, because Deathstroke obviously is not in GCPD. He's getting taken to Blackgate, or Blackgate or wherever. They just make
Mm.
either Bell
Bell
Rev,
Rev or
Blackgate,
somewhere.
depending.
Yeah.
Yeah, some big super prison, not Arkham, but some big super
Whichever
prison.
one Amanda
But
Waller
of
wants
course,
to take over this to make it instance.
yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. But of course, he gets away, and you're like, oh, how did he escape? And they don't really know, but they found some evidence. They're like, what is this? Is that an owl feather? I don't know what that even is. I don't even know what. But anyway, I know. But anyway, yeah, subtle, right? Anyway, so it that turns out that in this next season, Batman's kind of moved on from just the random drug thugs. Crime is getting better, but the police have obviously aren't happy about Batman, how aggressive he was towards like the police and stuff, and like the people as well as the police still don't like Batman.
Mm.
Jim Gordon trusts Batman personally because he thinks he's doing the right thing. He sees the corruption.
Yeah.
But from the outside looking in, most people think Batman's kind of a terrible person. He's just beating up whoever he pleases and doing whatever he wants.
Mm-hmm.
Which, in some way, is true. Bruce struggles
like,
with this
on
because
the
he's like,
surface,
am I doing the right thing? Am I?
yeah, on the surface, all these criminals who are working for these mob bosses, they're just trying to make an honest living, and like this is just where they ended up. Like this, they're doing all they can, and Batman is punishing them for it. Like I could easily, even though they are technically criminals, I can see people not loving the optics of that. Yeah.
Right, and like like, oh, these cops are crooked, but hey, if your family's getting threatened, I'd be a crooked cop too. So like, dude, I'm trying, and then there's your femur, like broken leg, like what I'm saying? Like it's very much more to it than meets the eye, but a lot of people don't see it that way because public perception is often distorted. But in spite of this, even Harvey Dent is kind of against Batman, not knowing, of course, that it's his best friend. Just at night, and Jim Gordon seems to be the only guy. Bullock doesn't like him. Montoya doesn't like him at first, but there's an interaction where Batman helps her out that she kind of goes on him, and that helps Jim and her kind of flip sides on Batman, and that's important. But anyway, so in season 2, we go through and basically, if the cops are bad enough, now you find out there's some kind of secret society in Gotham. We have, random people being taken and or killed. We have crazy things happen. Batman's like, well, that's not good. Let's find out what's going on. And upon investigating, he finds people, a bunch of rich people dead, and in their blood, the poem of the Court of Owls is written, which is like the whole, I forget how it goes.
I don't know enough about Court of Owls to really say, but yeah.
Okay, hold on, I should have wrote it down, but
like I know what you're talking about, but I couldn't even begin to tell you what it is.
Yeah, it's like beware the Court of Owls that watches all the time, ruling Gotham from a shadowy perch behind granite and lime. They watch you at your hearth. They watch you in your bed. before the Court of Owls, or they will come for your head.
Wow.
Basically, it's super creepy.
Yep.
And Bruce Wayne has a flashback to when he was a kid, and that was all. It's like, oh, it's just a story. It's like Ring Around the Rosy. It's just a story. It's not real, but
Oh.
obviously,
Yeah.
it's very real.
So
Good.
is Court of Owl, is that a thing in the comics where like the Court of Owls poem has been like a nursery rhyme
Yes.
passed down? Okay.
Yes,
Cool.
it's very much like a passed down Gotham thing. Like, oh, it's just a story,
Yeah.
but it's really not.
Yeah,
There's really is a
because
secret
that's
society murdering
hilarious
people.
because stuff like you said Ring Around the Rosie. Ring Around the
Yeah,
Rosie is about the Black Plague. Like it's
I
not a
know.
fun story.
I know. Like kids are just thinking about it, and people are literally dying, and it's just like, wow. Like, but no, that's something about history. People just try to distort terrible things by making them songs for children, and
Mhm.
and this is another example of that. And I think it's really done well here because, of course, Thomas and Martha Wayne are like, oh no, no, but of course,
They were part of it.
maybe
They
if
were a
you
part
don't
of
hear
it.
the Court of
Ah.
Owls, you never know who might be coming for your head. And it turns out, more or less, Batman finds out that is what happened to his parents. It's not just some guy in a mugging as happened to be at the theater. This is all planned out.
Mm.
It's a wealthy and affluent people who aren't willing to go into the depths of the secret
Okay.
society are, of course, whacked.
Okay. So
And that's a huge thing.
in several continuities, like the Telltale Batman, his parents were a part. Like they were like a part of all the
Right.
corruption. They were a part of the court that was controlling stuff.
Right.
And I really do like that part of it. It just shows that like Batman's past isn't flawless. He's his parents, who he devoted his entire life to protecting their legacy, they weren't exactly the greatest people
Mm-hmm.
either. I like that, but also the aspect of them not like obviously still being rich, so they're not great people, but like they don't want to go down the road of killing other people just because to join the society, and then that
Right.
kills them. I think that's also pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, and I kind of like the latter, the more noble side to it, because I feel like one I think that kind of makes a little more sense to why they die. Like I understand, like in every like mafia or secret society movie, you can get whacked for anything, but
Yeah.
like at the same time, I kind of like the idea that they're kind of taken out
Yeah.
for refusing to be with it because it kind of
I do. I also. This is a good idea. I still personally am partial to the idea of it just being just a completely random person, like Joe Chill or whoever, just a random person who they were just at the wrong place at the wrong time, and like just circumstantially they got killed because Gotham killed them that night. Like it wasn't like any individual organization or person. It was just like what happens in Gotham. They died. Batman is trying to stop this from happening, but Court of Owls doing it is still very, very, very cool.
Yeah, and I see your point too because it also gives the logical. It doesn't give it a logical conclusion for Batman's mission because if it's the Court of Owls behind it, it's like okay, I stopped the Court of Owls. My parents are avenged. We move on. But if it's just something in Gotham, until Gotham is a place where that something doesn't happen anymore, I can't stop. Which of course is never because that's irrational. It's crazy. Which makes way more sense.
Yeah.
But just because I think I talked to my brother about this, we went back and forth on these points, but he was like, I think he said personally, as someone who also loves Batman, he was like, personally, I think it's better that nothing happens by accident.
Okay.
And I kind of agree with him on that because I think that just kind of adds, because I mean, it does make total sense either way, but I think it just makes a little bit more sense because they are these super wealthy, influential people.
Yes.
So it kind of, that's why I decided to keep that in there.
Okay.
But
Sounds
yeah,
good.
yeah. So yeah, that's a whole thing, and obviously, Bruce Wayne is also approached by the Court of Owls as Bruce Wayne. Obviously, they don't know he's Batman, but as Bruce Wayne, and for a while he considers it because although they are, evil society, maybe he can use that to his advantage. Maybe he can, take them out from within.
Yes.
Is an idea that he's very much considering. And honestly, he kind of does go for it until he realizes that there's more to it than just we're evil people. There's a lot of mind controlling esque stuff going on, and obviously, like, oh, that's not good. So instead of fully going over the Court of Owls. He uses them to like get close. Obviously, disappears, and then Batman. They think they kill him, and then Batman shows up, beats the crap out of most of them. But then the Talons come out.
Yeah, Talon, let's go.
And it is wild because these things are just literal. I mean, have you read this? Like,
I've seen the Son of Batman arc of the DC.
Yeah, that
animated
too.
Movies.
These things are
Talon
monsters.
is insane. Yeah.
These are not people. These are. I thought these were people. These are not people. These are like zombies jumping around, just jumping, snapping heads, and jumping some more. Like they're crazy. And Batman just kind of gets destroyed because you might be prepared, but you're never prepared for zombie ninjas. Like that just doesn't happen. So he gets pretty beat the crap up, but somehow escapes because of course he's Batman, and figures out there has to be another way to beat them. And in the movie you talk about they are weak to like sub-zero temperature, so I think that could be important. But they find out Bruce Wayne is Batman because it makes no sense that. How did Batman find the Court of Owls right after Bruce Wayne? Because again, they have pretty much everyone else in the room could also be Batman, but they're not.
Yeah.
So it's like out of process, they're not stupid. Out of process of elimination, do some math, look at some records, they figure it out pretty
Probably
easily.
Batman. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like if we're wrong, oh well. But you're probably Batman.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's like 75% sure minimum. So of course they just go ape and like they send the Talons after Wayne Manor, but they do it while Batman's out. So Batman comes back, the place is destroyed, Alfred's on the ground. He's not dead because you can't lose Alfred, but
he's not yet.
Alfred, no. Highly improbable. But so Batman comes. Obviously, Batman realizes it's kind of a quiet night. And then he talks. He's like, Alfred, how's things back at home? Alfred doesn't answer, and of course that's a red flag. Batman comes back home. The whole cave, the house, everything's in shambles. Part of it's on fire. He's literally like, okay, we gotta do something about this. So obviously, Batman goes in, has some kind of house defense protocol. The house just has like lasers or something. And I don't know. Something to help him out, but eventually he beats the Talons, who he realizes if you break them, they can if they break, you can't just beat them up, you have to rip their heads off or something, which obviously they're not people anymore, so he doesn't care. But yes, so after that so after that with the whole Court of Owls thing, he's like, okay, I have to shut this down, and eventually finds. He essentially goes back to the Court of Owls and eventually is able to beat them. But after he beats the final Talon, who actually is a person, which I forget his name, but I should have wrote more of this down. I got too into it.
Yeah.
But
like the one
the final Talon. Right. Yeah. And the idea is they're trying to kill Batman and basically replace him as Talon and have the Court of Owls control everything.
Right.
Because that's kind of that's be the ultimate way to control it, and they almost succeed, but of course Batman doesn't let that happen because I am the Knight or whatever, and he finds because he finds out through his fight that his parents were killed by the Talons or by the court, and that motivates him to go even more crazy. Beats the Talons, beats the Court of Owls. The original Talon gets killed because he's not going to get captured, and the others get arrested, taken away.
Does he kill himself or like?
Well, it's like he does kill himself in the movie, but the way I put it, it was kind of like the place is going to explode, and instead of letting Batman save him, he kind of just stares at him while the explosion goes off and engulfs him.
Got it.
Because
so it's not even like a Ra's al Ghul. I'm not going to kill you. I don't have to save you. It's
he's
not going to let you save me. Got it.
No, it's like Batman's so flawed. He's like, you know what? You are literally the worst person ever, but because I'm Batman, I will save you. And it's kind of just like, nah, I'm cool. And he gets blown up. So that's a whole thing. That's really cool. And this one I was a little worried about going into because I feel like this is kind of all focusing on one big thing, and it kind of doesn't have a lot for other characters to do because
yeah, I mean you could have random filler episodes or other
Yeah.
villains just kind of sprinkled in there.
Right, yeah, and I have planned on because I want to start like I want to go gradually with villains because like I don't want to start with like a like meta the like super powerful villain like
Yeah.
off the bat because I feel like you need to grow up to that. But I think like having a villain, for example, like I always like to throw in one of my first villains is Firefly because he's one of the most practical villains. He's just an arsonist who
Yeah.
also has a jetpack. Like you know, it's just kind of cool. Like
Yeah.
to just have because I don't want to go straight to oh wow Clayface. It's like let's walk first,
Yeah.
So like
I can't think of an example of this off the top of my head, but there are several shows where the first episode or two are really focusing on the new villain or the new arc for the entire season, and then like the next, assuming it's like a say 12 episode season, and then the next 5 or so episodes is just kind of like filler, and maybe in there somewhere they learn something new about about the new villain or event, and then the mid-season episode, the mid-season is like more core story than a couple episodes later, and then like the like 3 episodes at the
yeah.
end. I think Court of Owls easily could kind of have that similar
Yes. And I think it works well with that because they have the whole conspiracy. So for all you know, they just hire other people to distract you and like stuff like that. And I think that's really good. And a lot of shows do that. I think like even like some of the CW shows kind of have that vibe as well.
Yeah, like Legends of Tomorrow, I think, is one I was trying to think of.
Yeah, shows do that, and I think that is good storytelling because it's never like the villain's gone. It's just kind of there's other stuff going on right now. So I think like a serial arsonist or something like that, or someone like even like Zaz, or I think Calendar Man would be good to introduce in this season because next season it'll be more important, more needed because this is where So and then the season 3, it's basically Batman's just like Jesus, what's can I get myself into? Like this is crazy. And he's still, and at this point he's only, at this point he's still not that old. But this is where, in the third season, this is where in the mid-season I want to have the whole like Haley circus like thing where obviously Dick's parents die, he's adopted, but obviously he's not going to be Batman. He's not going to be Robin. He's kind of just going to be Dick Grayson for now for the rest of that season. But he's just going to have a kid.
Season 2.
This is season 3 at this point.
Okay.
Because I want to emphasize Batman just being alone for a while because I don't think that like naturally it doesn't make sense for Batman to be Batman for like a year and then let's bring a 10-year-old along with me. You know what I'm saying? Like that logically doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think it's important to kind of just have Dick Grayson there, but not necessarily Robin yet. So in this season, more so focuses on kind of moving into the aspects of kind of a Long Halloween-esque. The only thing is, like, I know I can't do every villain from the original Halloween because, one, we'd be here all day, and two, I feel like some villains are better saved for later than others. But I do want that Harvey Dent origin because at this point, we're at the 3rd season. So, like, at this point, you already, like, Harvey's been fully developed, his character's fully developed. You like him enough that when he goes bad, that you're really actually upset, and Two-Face can be a really big villain. And I think that's important to have that happen. Ooh. Okay. Sorry, that was an Amber Alert. But
it's raining. We're good.
Yeah, we're good. It's flooding. Really, I didn't notice. Okay. But yeah, and then I think in that 3rd season, I think that's a big aspect of where we're starting to move towards Batman, kind of Bruce Wayne, kind of realizing is this something sustainable for a long time. Or should I focus on being more of a person? Because he sees someone like Dick Grayson, because it's like, again, I'm Batman, I'm doing what I can, but what happened to me just happened to him. So am I really doing a lot of good as who I am, or can I just change the city the other way? And he kind of wrestles with that a long time. And Alfred is very big in helping him, like, well, when this was you, I was doing this to help you, and you need to be that person for him. Because Bruce, believe it or not, does not have the best social skills with, like, parenting because when your parents die when you're a kid, you're not great on how to be a parent yourself. So that's very difficult for him with having that because he sees so much of himself in Dick Grayson growing up, and at the same time he has to deal with villains popping up, and he realizes like there's a lot of these villains are just kind of coming out of nowhere and everyone's showing up, and it's kind of like what is going it's like how is all this out? And then the Long Halloween starts to happen with the whole thing with everyone's coming out of the dark and what's going on and how are we going to get through this. But pretty much basically, the Holiday. There's the villain known as Holiday,
Right.
which I may or may not try to replace with Calendar Man, just because I don't know. I know Calendar Man's also in this story, but
From what I gather, it's been a while since I've really delved into Long Halloween. It kind of feels like Calendar Man and Holiday are like they filled the same role, right?
right,
They both just
right.
kind of do stuff on specific holidays, and it just kind of I don't know.
It feels very redundant, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
if you could just make
Like,
Calendar Man scarier, I think that would be more effective, and just get
I
rid
think
of
that's what,
Holiday.
that's kind of what I'm thinking, because yeah, like in the original story, I believe Calendar Man helps Batman. I said Calendar.
Yeah.
Calendar Man helps Batman figure out who Holiday is and all this stuff. But I think I'll just make Calendar Man the villain, and since he kind of can just send other villains free and send them after Batman, I think that's fine. And also, what I've kind of thought about doing is like, for a lot of villains, especially the ones who don't really have like defined origin stories, I've been thinking about developing them like off screen or like through time skips.
Okay.
And I don't want to do that with all my villains, but like, for example, I think the Joker, like, I don't think he needs like a first caper per se, because one, his origin is meant to be ambiguous unless it's, the Killing Joke that one time, but even then I'm kind of like, eh. And then like,
anyway, so.
yeah, and at the end it's like, you might have been joking anyway, but and then also it's kind of like, I feel like it makes more sense. I feel like Mr. Freeze having an origin in the story is more important in that case, because you actually want to sympathize with that character. There's no sympathizing with the Joker. He's just the Joker.
So
I feel like that can work.
At what point in your show will the Joker show up? Because I know he had a big part in Long Halloween.
Right, and that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking between season 2 and season 3, he showed up at one point, and you kind of just find this out going along. It's kind of like, wow, this happened, and I know that's kind of cheap and kind of, I know, and that's kind of what I struggle with, because like, I don't want to just kind of throw villains in without explaining them.
4 characters like that. 4 characters like the Joker who have had so many movies dedicated to them, just like Batman himself. You don't need to see his parents die.
Right,
like,
and that's
you don't need to see the Joker being introduced a 4th or 5th time.
That was kind of my reasoning. Like, my brother was telling me, he was like, I don't know, man, just throwing it in there kind of thing. But I was like, it's basically just the Joker shows up, and like, we will have stories about the Joker. We can do the whole mad love thing. We can do stuff like that. But I feel like specifically him just kind of being there is okay, because you know who it is.
Yes,
it's the Joker. You get it. Like, and I think that would kind of just waste time per se, just explaining it, because at this point, if you don't know who the Joker is, I mean, what if you don't know the Joker? How much Batman do you even know anyway?
Exactly.
So that's kind of why I feel like between the second and third season, the Joker can just kind of be there, and then also makes it easier just add him into stuff later, because again, like Long Halloween, he's kind of in that because it's not a party without the Joker, basically. So that kind of goes in with the whole, like, all right, Batman's whole, the gangs and stuff, the war crimes are still going strong. Calendar Man is doing this thing with Arkham Asylum, and then obviously Harvey Dent, has his whole Two-Face thing, but you've got Scarecrow going around, you've got, there's all these villains, and I think Poison Ivy is another villain that I might kind of throw in. I'm not sure yet, because her origin's kind of flaky depending on which continuity you look into, but I'm kind of thinking that like you could just throw her in also. I don't want to throw in just Scarecrow. I kind of do want to explain Scarecrow, because I kind of like the idea that he worked. Like, I don't know if somehow knew he's like a professor at Gotham U. Some he's like a scientist at Arkham working on fear. So I kind of like a mixture of those two. He can kind of like because it would make sense that he would study the fear at Arkham, because people could have like ridiculous phobias, so that would like make sense.
So when does Batman or Bruce Wayne or whoever like establish Arkham? When does Arkham Asylum get established in this series?
That is a good point. I didn't think about that. Dang it. Well, I think Arkham's kind of been there, but I think it's not to the level it has to be lately, because like, when it's just regular crazy people, it's one thing, but when it's the Joker, it's a whole other, it's basically a supermax penitentiary, but also a psychiatric ward. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I think that might also be kind of done off screen, just because like...
Yeah, I could easily see even like either at the beginning of season 2 or the beginning of season 3, just like at some point during the episode, just like a news report saying, you know, after Arkham Asylum was established, blah blah blah, like, just kind of just offhand saying it was established, but it's not really doing a lot or
Yeah,
something.
it's
Just
like
kind of
thanks to contributions from the Wayne Foundation, Arkham Asylum has been innovations to hold its more or what's a good word for super bad, like more in, I don't know, worse
yeah.
inmates, so like it could be like Bruce Wayne along with some other, maybe like, Star Labs or whatever is like invested in Arkham to make it more accommodating for some of our
And that
more.
could even be, like, if it is beginning of season 3, that could even go along with being like, but the Joker still escaped. Like,
Right, yeah, because of course he does. Like,
the phrase
yeah,
no
it's
one knows
like,
the Joker who set fire to whatever last week got out or whatever. Like,
yeah,
just
because of
offhand,
course he
just
did. And everyone's freaking out like, oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Like, it is an exposition dump, but I feel it's done, and I like, because generally speaking, news reports in movies are seen as like an appeal to authority, where
Mhm.
it's not just someone talking at you. It feels very natural. Like, I think it's not just a random character looking at the screen, just spitting facts at you for 5 minutes. It's very natural. Like, in the world, this is being presented anyway. Like, I like that.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's important because I feel like one, I think the news it would be very important in Gotham because it could like tell you about Bruce Wayne stuff and Batman stuff. It'd be
Yeah.
like, in other news after Batman, yeah, Bruce Wayne has sent contributions to the, it's kind of
Uh-huh.
like, he's devil in the news. It adds a lot of stuff. You can just see what's going on from a better vantage point. And I think again, like since this is more, at this point, I feel like this is more catering for the fans. It's like I think this is just good to like characters most people just know will
Mm.
just kind of just be thrown in. You don't need to explain why these characters are the way they are, especially when they don't have the most gripping of origin stories. And I think that's really important. But yeah, so Halloween happens. That happens with and this is kind of, and like this is in the Batman mythos. This is kind of the point where it's like, okay, we're going from just gangsters to like super criminal loony bin. Like this is
Mm.
insane rogues gallery, and I think that's a very important theme to kind of go with in this season. Just kind of people just start popping up, and I think it's good that like you can have someone like Poison Ivy kind of pop up, or like even we can do Mister Freeze's story here, and then at the end when Long Halloween kind of reaches the thing, they can all just kind of be out and like, all right, you put me away a couple months ago, let's do this,
Mm-hmm.
and that whole thing goes crazy. But yeah, I think that's very good. I think Harvey Dent. I think it's also at the end of the season, it's a very good extension for like, as we started out with like Bruce Wayne slash Batman, Gordon, and Harvey Dent kind of all moving up to make Gotham better.
Mm-hmm.
But as like Bruce Wayne reaches top ascension, as people start to more accept Batman because of what he's done, also he gains a son, and Jim Gordon at this point is promoted to Commissioner of Police.
Yes.
Harvey Dent goes all the way down to the bottom of the Gotham world as
Love it.
a disfigured monster and eventually a supervillain. So
Mm.
like, I think that's a very good symbolism how like you can start together and eventually become miles apart. So there's that. So
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, I know that's a lot. We're only in season,
We're just getting started. Come on,
season
we're just
4.
getting started. Let's go.
Now this is where the real stuff happens. No. Oh man. Okay. So season 4 happens. At this point, I think at this point we can go from it's been like a year or so since Bruce adopted Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson is kind of starting out as Robin at this point. I
Okay,
think
so
that's
time
good
skip
because
between seasons, he's already Robin.
right between seasons, it could be another news report, and Batman and his new sidekick Robin had just like
Mm-hmm.
Batman and like, or they'll be like the Boy Wonder, and he's like, who added that? I hate that. Like like you just. I think that could be a running joke that like all the Robins hate Boy Wonder, and I
Yes.
think that would be kind of funny. But but
Like,
yeah, I
especially
think
when he
could.
becomes Nightwing, they still call him that. It's like, stop.
Yeah,
calling
it's
me
like
that.
the former Boy Wonder. Seriously, like, how, are we not past this yet? Like, I am a grown man. But yeah, I think he becomes. I think he like if he gets adopted around 10, becomes Robin at about 12. At this timeline, Bruce Wayne's about 28
Mhm.
or so. So he's still, he's been Batman at this point for about, I'd say 6-7 years. So he's been doing Batman for a while. So he's like, you know what? Maybe I can bring this kid with me. But
Mhm.
one, I'm gonna train you like crazy, and two, like the harder missions, it's just going to be Batman. I think
Yes.
that's important because that's going to kind of make an early rift in their relationship and their dynamic because it's going to be like, you were so fine with me going into danger here, but then it's like, oh, Robin, stay at home, watch the Batmobile, and I think
Mhm.
that, and he is a kid, so of course when you're a kid, but you're also a superhero, you think you're, the
Invincible.
biggest deal ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's important. But in this season, I think it's important to have the idea of like like when we talked about earlier with Ra's al Ghul, I think that this is the perfect time for that to come back because
Yes.
Gotham's kind of been in more of a national limelight again. Not that Ra's al Ghul is forgotten, but just that now is a good time to like highlight. Wow, look how much my new successor has accomplished. He beats supervillains now. He's in the
Undercovered
top
entire
shelf.
conspiracies. Like he's been doing it.
Right, the Court of Owls of Legend that of course Ra's al Ghul knows about, but of
Yeah.
course,
He
I
might
mean,
have founded them. We don't know.
yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, my guys, like I'm evil. We all know. All supervillains know each other.
Yeah.
Like,
No, no.
we
For
have evil
900 years,
LinkedIn.
obviously, I know them. Like, come on.
Yeah, yeah, like the supervillain LinkedIn or something. But like, basically, this is where Rachel Gold decides. All right, this is where I need to go and like. And and he sees him, and he's like, I need to go, like, and make my formal introduction, be like, hey, man, So of course he just kind of shows up in the Batcave because it's Ra's al Ghul, and he
Yep.
can do that.
Yep.
And he kind of just shows him the Batcave, and like, he's like, this is me, this is Ubu. Ubu's just like the ridiculously juiced looking dude because why not?
Mhm.
And then and he explains his whole thing. And of course, he doesn't explain the whole we're an evil secret society because like that still probably has a sour taste in his mouth
Mhm.
from earlier. But he kind of explains that he's an that this is an international team with a mission of a better world. Whatever they say. How they introduced cults originally to make
Yep.
it sound like it's not a cult. So again, Batman's like, all right, this is kind of sketchy, but I'll agree to it. So as Bruce Wayne, he takes a trip to, we'll say, somewhere in the Middle East ish, like Lebanon or something. I don't know, but like, not that Lebanon's not in the Middle East.
No,
But
it's not.
like, I don't know. I don't know why. For some reason, okay. So I don't know what like national. I know like theoretically it's somewhere or it's like Arabic because like Ra's al Ghul is Arabic for head of the demon, so it's somewhere
Right.
in
I
there.
always just kind of assumed that like strip of land in between like Poland and Russia, like kind of that area. I don't know. I've always just kind of imagined anything that's like Eastern, but like not like Sokovia. I always imagined it just kind of there
Yeah.
somewhere, like like
Yeah.
like
Okay.
maybe like above Turkey somewhere, like kind of I don't know.
Okay. Well, it says Nanda Parbat. It says some iterations it's in Turkey. Or I'm
Okay,
not in Turkey, but I'm Tibet. I don't know why I said Turkey. I do not know geography
that's
very
fine.
well, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah, although him having a more like Asian influence also makes sense.
Yeah, like that, like not a white guy,
Yes,
basically. Long
yes.
story short, like not a white guy. Like very much has kind of the beard with the gray and like the gray sideburns, like very much how he looks in like the anime
Not
series.
Liam Neeson, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. Not that I think Liam Neeson did a good job. I just
Yeah.
don't think he looked
The first guy they introduced as Ra's al Ghul in that movie, that guy, not
yes,
actually.
that looked exactly like a little more beard, but like yes, that was exactly what it looked. Yeah, and kind of like and like even like how they did like Arrow, where they kind of copied Liam Neeson. I was still kind of like,
Okay.
like he got the like he sounded like kind of like not like he had an accent, but like he kind of like the way he talked and acted was very on par. But it's like not the look, so to say. But yeah, definitely like a more Western inspired looking person, and obviously Talia's as that same similar kind of descent. But of course, Talia's gorgeous because it's Talia,
Yeah.
and and that's a whole thing. And he's like, "You'll even have my daughter." And he's like, "Well, don't get me wrong, your daughter is nice, but
Yeah. Oh, that. Quick pause, real quick.
Yeah.
When does Catwoman get introduced? Is that later?
that is also a thing. That is something I kind of thought about, but I thought about it might be better to do that after this actually,
Okay.
because I think it's kind of part of. I think it kind of like this kind of is the first thing of like female supervillains, and Batman's like, this is probably a bad idea. And then Catwoman shows like, this is definitely a bad idea.
Okay.
But I'm
Right, I
human.
mean,
So,
yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, it's not every day you meet a girl in a skin tight catsuit. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? So, like, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Uh-huh.
Like, you know, but
Okay,
anyway, but
cool.
yeah, I
Cool.
think yeah. So that is coming. That is coming. I kind of wanted that to be kind of more because I think like it's like if Robin met Catwoman first and then Batwoman, kind of like
I like
all
that.
right, because I think Robin can kind of like be sent on like lower, not super villain in terms because again she's like a cat burglar. At least that's how they first see it. So it's like okay, there's a string of robberies. Robin's investigating, and then Robin runs into Catwoman, and then Batman's like okay, I need to jump in on this.
Yes.
But anyway, back to Ra's al Ghul. So that whole thing is going on, and this is where Talia drugs him, and this is where that happens, and that won't be seen for a while, but we'll get there when we get there.
Okay.
But that'll come back, obviously. But again, well, it'll be like slightly like if you know, you'll know, but like most of you won't know.
It'll be
So
about
anyway,
10,
that
12
all
years
happened.
before we notice, but yeah, it'll.
That's what. Well, yeah. I mean, I did the math. Bruce Wayne at this time is about 28, 20. What does it say? Yeah, Bruce Wayne's like 28, 29. Batman shows up when he's like 40ish. So like
Almost
the
40.
math's about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like right. That's the math's about right. So anyway, assuming everything goes perfectly as planned. But anyway. So that whole thing happens. Batman obviously is like, hey man, I appreciate you flying me out here, all this, but I'm not gonna join your cult. And then Ra's al Ghul's like, are you sure?
Wrong
and he's like,
answer.
yeah. And then, yeah. And he's like, yeah. And then he's like, ooh, I wish you hadn't said that. And of course, now tries to kill Batman. Batman escapes, but now Ra's al Ghul is like, well, you won't join me. You know about us, so we have to destroy you. So now the League is on to Gotham, and this is bad. Because
Really?
is crazy.
This is
like
bad.
this is bad.
I never have guessed.
Yeah, and of course this is like the fourth time some world-ending thing is come to Gotham. Everyone's like, okay, what are we doing wrong? But the League comes specifically for, and obviously they know Bruce Wayne is Batman because they're not stupid, and then and then they ascend on Bruce Wayne. They destroy Wayne buildings specifically. They really target Batman. And this is where it's important because this is the big thing where Batman's like, Robin, and for good reason. He's like, Robin, stay in the cave. You don't go anywhere. You don't even go on patrol anymore. Sit here.
Stay on the lower level of the cave behind the big penny. Like,
yeah, exactly. That was good. That's the big thing. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's very like important too for this because this is the first time in that instance that Robin has kind of been really put in his place. Granted, he is still a child here, and most people know, children don't remember. Or children remember more so what their parents say in the moment than parents remember what they say to their kids in the moment.
Yes.
And though this is a very good reason, this is a big psychologically for Robin, like, all right, I can't do this forever. And he knows that, but obviously he's like 14, so he can't just move out.
Yeah.
But this will follow him later.
Yeah.
So anyway, the League is in Gotham. The League is going crazy, killing people. Like, they're basically like that. They're drawing him out because they know, like, he's not going to sit in that cave forever. He's going to come out. And of course, Batman's like, fine. You want me, let's do this. But, it's not enough that we have to literally blow up the city. Because we're not just bad guys. We're really bad guys.
Yeah.
So, like, they're going to try to somehow to destroy the city. I have not decided how yet. I like the idea of, like, just some kind of, like, I know there was one thing, like, earthquake generators was an idea one time, which that would kind of set up No Man's Land, but that doesn't really work.
Not yet, at least, yeah.
Right? So then I was kind of like, well, maybe, but probably not. So maybe we can come back and do that. But anyway, he decides instead of just destroying, he lets Arkham loose because that's what you do when you take over Gotham, and obviously that doesn't go well. So Batman has to round up everybody again. And eventually, Ra's al Ghul and him kind of have this duel to the death, of course, because that's what you do when you fight Ra's al Ghul.
Yep.
And Deathstroke comes back
Obviously.
because Deathstroke's like, Daddy, I'm your favorite, not him. And now, out of all this other stuff he's got to deal with, now Batman has to beat Deathstroke again and beat Ra's al Ghul because Deathstroke, of course, rakes in, kidnaps Robin, and has Robin, and now Batman's like, oh my god, what would I say about the big penny? And has to go back and get Deathstroke because Deathstroke's trying to, if I can't be you, then I will break you, and, well, not break you, but you know what I mean, kill his kid, all that stuff. And that goes on, but of course Batman beats Deathstroke again because, again, he's Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And then beats Ra's. Man, this is a lot. I didn't really. When I was writing, this does not feel like as much as it is, but like talking, I feel like I've been going for hours.
Oh.
I literally have. But it's great. I'm sorry. We might not get. If we don't get to you, I'm sorry.
It is absolutely fine. This is fun.
But no. Well, anyway, so then so Batman, Deathstroke's back, has beat Deathstroke, saves Robin. You know, Robin's happy to be alive, but still kind of mad at Batman. But you know, he's 14. Who cares? And then, of course, you have to beat Ra's al Ghul. Ra's, of course, dies. But I mean, I think we all know that's not the end of the story.
Yep.
So that happens. Talia's crying about it, even though Talia knows the Lazarus Pit's a thing. But of course, Batman doesn't necessarily know the Lazarus thing. They gotta sell it. And that goes on. Goodbye, beloved. They leave, and Gotham is kind of just ransacked.
Yeah.
We can fix it as money, and that sucks. But going forward, public opinion on Batman is at an all-time low because this never would happen if Batman wasn't Batman.
Right.
Like, the league of that does just like, it's one thing when the Court of Owls is kind of already in the city and you just didn't know it. It's another thing when an entire legion of master assassins comes from across the world just to come to your house.
Yes.
And mess stuff up. So at this point, public opinion on Batman's really soured. Robin doesn't really like Batman. I mean, Batman just did all this work, and everyone pretty much hates him for it. And Batman's just kind of like,
well, that sucks.
No love for the Batman, and that kind of leads off into this next season. And during this next season, because Batman public opinion is so low and everything, he doesn't really. I mean, not that he makes appearances, but he isn't really in the private light anymore. The bat signal doesn't get used as much. Like, it had been used prior to this because Jim Gordon's kind of moved up.
Right.
But before, and again, the bat signal is not like, I want to make sure, like, the bat signal is not like, oh, there's trouble, like the bat signal, and in 45 minutes Batman will get here. It's more of a symbolic thing at this point, because at this point, I mean, you can literally, like, text or whatever. It's kind of like,
or even just Batman knows. Just Batman just knows they're around. Like, it's not like he needs to show up.
It's like, it's like a Batman.
So, like, yeah, he doesn't need Gordon. He doesn't need Jim Gordon to tell him what's going on. He just already knows. But yeah.
Right. And that's what he knows. And I kind of think it might also be like symbolic of the bat signal broken during the fight with like Deathstroke or something. Just like they're not super in a hurry to fix it. So that makes more sense.
Yep.
So that's kind of something I thought about too. But anyway, so during this, I think we're at season 4 at this point. I think that's right.
5,
yes.
4, 5, 5.
Yes, because Robin's. Yes, 5 because 4 or 3 is where we meet Dick Grayson, but not Robin. 4 is where we meet Robin, and then we just finished 4. So here we are at 5. Sorry, I know this is a long actual. Sorry. I know this is a lot. I know there's a lot to cover, and we're talking on the first Robin. I know. I'm so sorry.
This is fun.
I know. I know. It's good. I know.
If you need to drink the water,
okay,
please take
so
some.
anyway, so anyway, in this thing. Say what?
If you need some water, please take some.
What?
If you need some water, please take some.
Oh, no. Actually, I might be. But no, I mean, okay, so in this next season, this is kind of where the supervillains just kind of be showing up at this point. So public opinion on Batman is an all-time low. People don't like Batman. People don't want to talk about Batman. Batman, of course, is still being Batman, but like, it's not like a, oh man, Batman's out there. It's like, a, oh my gosh, why is Batman still out here? Yeah. People blame Batman for what happened, and rightfully so, because again, this not like this racing thing would not have happened without Batman. But anyway, At this point, the public needs to see on Batman, and people need, whether they realize it or not, they do kind of need Batman because we've reached that point where we have supervillains kind of just showing up because you have guys like now I'm introducing Killer Croc, and now I'm introducing like guys just kind of showing up, and it's like this is terrible. Cops cannot handle a giant monster, or Mr. Freeze has his origin here. I don't think that you can't really just, oh, it's okay. Gotham's minus is got this. Like, you need the Batman whether you realize it or not. You've reached the point, and that's kind of, and a big thing is like you've reached the point of no turning back because once you've introduced Batman to this level, you can't go back to just war on drugs. Drugs is the last thing anyone's worried about now. Now it's like, will I get eaten today on the way home? Like, it's crazy. So Batman still needs to be Batman. Dick Grayson has grown up some. He's about 16 here. He's still Robin, but hey, their relationship is better because you grew up a little bit. You understand the consequences. Okay, maybe it wasn't good for a 14-year-old to be out with a bunch of ninja assassins, but still, you could have told me that. And and that's kind of the dynamic they go with. And here, I want to introduce Barbara Gordon because I think it's important to have that, and her connection with Dick Grayson is very important. So they're about 15, 16. I think I want to say she's like a year older than him, just because. Why not? But yeah, she's doing her thing, and she kind of decides, because it's like Batman's very spread thin, and she kind of wants to add more, like more of a because it's a symbol as well as it is a persona. So she wants to kind of just instead of, she doesn't dress up as Batgirl, but she kind of just dresses up as like what Batman would wear. So just like cowl cape, dark clothes, and kind of is just like the silhouette thing around town with like, so if someone's jacking her car, she kind of stands there like, oh crap, it's Batman, like run off because she's on a building, they can tell. And at first that's like fine, but eventually she sees somebody getting mugged, has to jump in because she's Batman or whatever, and then Robin shows up and is like, what are you doing? Like, and then it's kind of this whole like, I saw her doing this, she's doing that. Batman, of course, is not having it. Is like, it's a terrible idea. And of course, after like a day, knows, oh, that's Barbara Gordon because he's Batman. And then calls her out in person. Like he like finds her. Batman finds Barbara Gordon, tells her, do not do this anymore. And then she's like, well, I have to because there may be only one Batman, but there's a whole lot more villains now. We got to do something about it. And he's like, this isn't a thing for kids. Batman, and then Robin's just kind of like, well, but it's kind of just, he kind of, and that whole thing. But anyway, that all happens, and eventually something is, I believe it's a Two-Face thing, where she kind of gets more involved because Batman has to do more. Batman needs to expand his ability just as a team, and that he decides, all right, fine, but we'll have to train you, we'll give you some stuff, and eventually they work towards beating. And the villain here is Two-Face as the big villain here, just because that kind of rounds out the Harvey arc, because we kind of saw him descend into this craziness and then kind of didn't hear from him. So I think it's important to kind of, that loss of character kind of comes back, and this really hits Bruce Wayne obviously as much as Batman because it's his best friend, and he knows that, but Two-Face doesn't know that. But
I could even see a thing where like you said, Harvey Dent and Jim Gordon worked really closely together, so I assume Barbara would at least have met Harvey before, like so like her really started to get into Batgirl stuff.
Yeah, he's like, he used to.
That's cool.
Yeah, she'd be like, he used to come over when I was a kid. Like, we had dinner one time, like, that kind of stuff. And then it's like, now he's a homicidal maniac. Like, how did this happen? But here we are, and that's really big for and I think that's big on Jim Gordon. I think this is where like Jim and Batman really cement that like we're in this till the end kind of thing together thing. Which is ironic because, of course, it just involved your daughter and, knowingly involved your daughter and, death, potentially. So that's nice. But I'm not going to mention that because it's details. But, that's not super important, right? So that happens. That's going on. And, there's occasional pop-ups. But, yeah, I think the villains here, Killer Croc was one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's also Poison Ivy, and also Harley Quinn is introduced
Okay.
here because I think that's a good. I think that's one of those subtle things to be added near the end of the season, but not really act on till the next season. Because
Yeah.
at this point, the Joker's still in Arkham because of the whole last thing that happened. So he's in Arkham, but he's like, how can I manipulate this to make it work for me? There's a little scene of that, and in the next season, the Joker's broke out, of course, because the Joker always breaks out because that. And then this is the Joker's season pretty much because the Joker needs at least his own season as a villain. Like I don't want him to be first introduced and have his own season, but I think if he's established somewhat and then has his own thing, it works. What's up?
Oh, go. Keep going. I'm just making a note. Keep going.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Okay, So yeah, I think that's good. So like in this next season going on, Batman's about I'd say 36. Yeah, 36.
Yeah,
Dick Grayson's about Dick Grayson's about he's like 18. Barbara just left for college because she's like 19. So she's at like I mean, obviously she's going somewhere to study computer science. That'll be important later. And then Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson, they're at the peak of their like headbuttingness because Dick's basically almost a grown up at this point. He's been doing Robin for 6 years now, give or take. Like he knows what he's doing, but Bruce still treats him like he's a little kid. Like go get the Batmobile or make sure
I've
just
been doing
just
this
like
for
everyone.
6 years. I can drive now, and you make me.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's
yeah,
like
you make me get you the Batmobile. Like why don't I get my own car? Like that type of
Right. Yeah.
Take the car.
Yeah. Oh man. But seriously, and he's at the point he's kind of like, I could basically do this on my own.
Yep.
But for some reason, you are just treating me like I'm still that. I'm not that 12-year-old kid in the little shorts anymore, man. Which I'm not gonna make him wear little shorts because that's not practical. But
they're
he's not the same little kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna have it's gonna be Kevlar based stuff. It has to look military. It can be like colorful. It has to be like colorfully military grade.
Maybe
stuff.
he'll start off in a similar getup that he would when he did the trapeze, but it kind of evolves to be a little more protective.
Yeah, by the time he's full Robin, it looks very much kind of like how it does in that Titan show, where it looks very
Oh yeah, the one great thing about that show is the costume design is so good. Aside from
but
Starfire, but we're not into that right now. It's fine.
yeah, but it looks legit. So anyway, obviously Dick Grayson and Batman don't get along as much. Barbara's gone, so Dick's kind of mad at that because he kind of liked her. They kind of liked each other. They kind of had a little thing. Hinted they had a little on and off thing, but it wasn't anything serious because, we're kids and crime fighters. We're kind of busy. Let's not make it the whole thing. But she's gone now. She's in college, probably with some other dude. He's just like, whatever. I'm still here. I'm stuck with this butthole. But that's a whole thing going on. Sorry. But yeah, that's a whole thing going on. Now, it's the villains here kind of was a little all right, the Joker's going to be the big fish here, obviously. But in terms of other villains, I thought the Mad Hatter would be a good villain because I think I just really like the whole mind control aspect, just because it's super useful, it's very cool, and it'll come in handy later with bigger schemes if someone else wants to use them. He's kind of like a sub villain that another villain could use, and that works well for him.
Yeah.
And then also I didn't want to use the Riddler and the Joker in the same season because I feel they're not similar, but they kind of
thematically I can see them being I can see them being similar. Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to keep them separate, but I also do like the Riddler. I think it's important that Batman and Robin go against the Riddler because I just that's just how I was introduced to the Riddler, so it kind of works for me. But those are kind of the more sub-villains, but the Joker's obviously planning the whole thing. He's doing some, ridiculous, crazy plot here. I wasn't sure which to go with here just because I was I don't know, because I don't know what to do with what's the end game so much. I was kind of running out of gas in terms of what the end game was. We already did destroy the city, so do we do the laughing fish? Do we try to do
poison the water supply? What do we do?
Yeah, what do we do here? There's so much we can do here. So I thought about the whole what is it? The one there's like one where he tries to like it's something with the air. I don't know how, but like with the air, he just gets his gas like in the air with like clown cars or something driving
Right.
around, and people just of course go crazy. And I want it to be like they like suffocate when they laugh because it makes it
Laugh
more
so
worse.
long that
Because
they just die. Yeah. Right.
exactly because you don't breathe when you're laughing that much, and then they just which I think that's important because again the Joker is like it's important to be like he's kind of funny,
Yeah.
but he's also a mass murderer. It's
Terrifying.
a
He's
very
funny, but he's terrifying. Yeah.
exactly like you laugh, but you're also peeing your pants in the bad way. Like it's a very much yeah. I think that's very important. And I do want the Joker to be very fun. Like that's one thing I liked about Mark Hamill's Joker. He was very funny, but you had to take him seriously 100% of the time.
Yes.
And I feel like not that I don't think Ledger's Joker is amazing, but I never was like laughing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like there were a
nervous.
couple of things that were funny just because of the circumstance, but like there was there was he was a lot more serious as Joker, especially way more serious than than Mark Hamill's or even oh no, why am I
Jack
blanking?
Nicholson?
Yeah, Jack Nicholson. Like Jack
Yeah.
Nicholson's was he had a very nice blend of both. And I like that.
Yeah, yeah, which I think is important because I think I do want it to be like I want because like even with like like every time he's on the screen, it's something funny. Like it's funny, but it's also serious. I kind of want that to be because everyone's doing something terrible, but I think it's very important to like this is funny.
Yes.
So that's going down with the Joker. He's got some big, huge scheme going on. Batman and Robin, they beat him, but at the point of there's a point where Robin in the comics there's a point where Robin gets like he gets like she's late for something or like he doesn't follow Batman's order exactly, gets like almost critically shot by the Joker and is like fired, straight up fired. And he's
Batman
like,
fires.
if you're gonna do like if you're
yeah.
What?
Batman fires Robin.
Yeah, Batman fires. Yeah, Batman fires him for being Robin. He's like, what do you mean fired? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's like freaking out about it. He's like, you're done. And of course, Robin just like, at the end, the end of the season, Robin leaves.
Yes.
And and originally is like, oh, he goes to Teen Titans, but since this is just a Batman show, I think it'll just be he's going to find himself
next door. Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, do my own thing. And that's kind of a thing going on. But I think it's important, though, that he's still Robin when he leaves. Okay. He's not Nightwing. He's still Robin when he leaves. He's just Robin's in another city as a grown-up, just beating up people, doing his thing in Bloodhaven. Which is important because in the next season, of course, Batman's like, let me get my rebound Robin with Jason Todd. And that all happens. So okay. So I know this is going. I know this is going long. So okay.
Keep going.
So
I'm not bored yet.
So okay, cool. That's all I know. I was just like, man, like, because I don't even get back to talking. I'm like, oh man, I know he's probably dying. But okay. So Dick Grayson leaves about 18 or 19 years old. Leaves Gotham, tries to find himself, ends up in Bloodhaven. Is kind of like, you know what? I'll do my own thing. Forget Bruce. Forget all this. I'm done with all this crap I've been dealing with. And then, of course, Bruce is like, well, I did this there without a Robin. And then, like, not too long after, he finds Jason Todd, the original continuity, he's trying to take the tires. I feel like that's very, like, I don't know if that ages well. So I'm trying to think he's just maybe trying to just jack the Batmobile or something.
I've always found that hilarious because like, maybe the Batmobile was less high-tech back in the 70s or 80s whenever they introduced Jason, but you find the Batmobile and you try to take the tires.
Like just the tires, like
yeah. I rather like the idea of like a Batman like pressing a button on his like gauntlet and like the door opens up and Jason's just like in there just like hot wiring it and he's like, hi.
Yeah, he's just like. Now I know what you're thinking. Yeah, yeah, I kind of like that idea. Also, I'm not sure how he would do that, but. I think that would be kind of cool. Also,
I feel like that also shows the like Jason Todd's inherent intellect to be able to get into
right, right. Because that's the whole thing. When Batman's like, you know what? Maybe I can use this kid. He's a troubled kid. Because I'm pretty, his dad's a goon for Two-Face. His mom has like this like drug problem. So like he's not an orphan, but he's basically an orphan. So like we can pretty much just I'll just scoop him up, you know. And Batman's fresh off of losing his last Robin, which Bruce is. Let's see, what age are we at? 30,
6?
30. Let's say like 36 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So like like doing this for a while. He's been Batman for some time. Everyone
Yeah.
knows who Batman is. But so that he kind of just like, you know what, Jason Todd's, I'll say 15. I put 15 here when we first find him.
That's good.
So they take it because I don't want all the Robins to be kids because I feel like that kind of doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes Bruce's life a lot longer than it should be. Like he'll be like 60 by the time this is over. It's like, come on, man. Like, so yeah, he's like 15 where he finds Jason Todd, and then he's like trying to hop by the Batmobile or whatever. He takes him home. He's like, where's your? He's like, all right, where's your thing? He's like, I don't have a home really. My dad's a goon. My mom's basically in the drug house all the time. His dad, so his dad. I mean, I guess so. Like his dad gets arrested or whatever. His mom's, in rehab.
You probably met my dad before and you punched him in the face. Like,
yeah, there's something like that would be like, well, he was until I think he broke his collarbone or something. He was like, well, I mean, I was like, well, I shouldn't have been a goon. Like, that's the risk you take. Like, it is what it is. So anyway, that's going on. So he pretty much adopts Jason Todd, and not even that much long after, maybe a couple months after, he decides, I want to be Robin. And Batman at first is like, no. And he's like, you know what? Do it. Yeah. And then Dick Grayson finds out that he's like, he feels in the news or something that there's, yeah, he's like, Batman and Robin. He's like, what? Like, as he's Robin, like, as he's, like, in his Robin suit, like, what? Like, are you serious? So he beelines it back to Gotham City, walks in and is like, excuse me? Like, how dare you? And this whole thing, and Jason, of course, is like, well, maybe he just wanted a Robin who was capable. And I'm thinking, like, boy, I will bust you in half. Like, they obviously do not get along because no one ever gets along with the guy who replaces them.
Exactly.
Like, it just doesn't happen. Like, you just automatically don't like each other. It just happens. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. So they obviously don't get along. They butt heads a lot. Bruce is kind of like, well, he's like, so you're telling me that it's too dangerous for a kid to be working with me. And then you get a kid literally like years younger than me and immediately replace me. He's like, and don't tell me he followed orders. I can tell this guy doesn't, because Jason never follows orders ever. Mm-hmm. So like, of course, like, so it's literally nothing but I just want another Robin, and I don't want someone better than you. And then Dick Grayson is just like, dude, you suck. And I think it's kind of important to, like, as the show goes on, Batman kind of reveals to be not the person. Mm-hmm. Because I think an aspect about Batman people realize, like, Batman has done some awful stuff.
Yeah.
For his mission. And we'll get more into that going forward, but, like, Batman does not do the best stuff for people. Like, he's really messed up. He really, he manipulates even his own teammates and everything. Like, it's still not good. But anyway, Batman has a new Robin. Obviously, it's just like, whatever. For kids, like, you're critical, you're stuck, you toxic, all this stuff. If it wasn't for Alfred, I'd never go up. You know what I'm saying? Like, all that classic stuff. And he goes back to Blood, and he's like, but all right, forget it. He leaves the Robin, he's done with it.
Him actually, like,
and then obviously,
I really like the visual of him, like, literally, like, leaving the Robin suit at the Batcave. I think I like that visual a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of what I was going for. He kind of just throws it down in front of the chair and just walks out. Mm-hmm. Like, never wears it again, never even looks at it again. Like, he's done. And I think it's important to that because, like, I think the fact that he was still Robin when he was replaced is kind of just like, how dare you? Like, and I think it really shows the audacity of Batman just does not care. Mm-hmm. I think that's important. And yeah, that just destroys their relationship, which is great. And then, in the matter of speaking. So anyway, that goes on, and then, that goes on. Jason's kind of like, whatever, who cares? I mean, sucks for him, but I'm Robin now. Anyway, so now we have this whole thing where we have to go into. Unfortunately, with the rise of Jason comes the fall of Jason because
Yeah, I was about
that's
to
how.
say, like, by the end of this season, he's not going to be Robin anymore.
No, I like don't worry, Robin won't be replaced for a long time, but you don't know that yet.
Yeah.
So anyway, of course, we have to do the whole death in the family because you can't. I mean, you don't even have Jason Todd. You don't do the story. So
Yeah.
basically, I think and how I want to set it up is kind of interesting because I do want to do the whole thing where it's like his mother is like captive and Batman against or Robin against Batman and wishes goes after her and is obviously easily manipulated by the Joker. And I think because I know in the original continuity, I did some research. His mom that was a drug addict was dead, but his biological mom was someone else he didn't even know about, which I feel like that's really kind of too comic booky for me. It's just kind of like really
pushing it a little.
Like he just happened to have another mom.
Yeah.
So I instead of killing, I think she'll just be in rehab and she gets taken from rehab or something, and just gets threatened. The only thing is like, how does he know that's his mom? Is the only thing that I'm kind of iffy about. So I was interested to think about maybe if there's a way that like. I know, like in the Under the Red Hood movie, Ra's al Ghul's involved, and obviously he knows who Batman is.
Yeah. Yeah, like Ra's al Ghul helped Joker somehow. I was always a little confused at how exactly Ra's al Ghul fit into that story, but
I believe it was something. Ra's had like a ploy or something he was doing somewhere, and Batman goes international to come chase him. But in doing this, obviously, he brings Robin with him, and he needs a distraction, so he sends out the Joker somewhere else. Who kidnaps Robin's mom and holds her somewhere and threatens Robin. So obviously, Robin drops everything, goes after the Joker. Batman kind of also needs to go after him, but also can't just let Ra's go, but he kind of has to because Robin can't beat the Joker by himself. And he goes after him. Obviously, the whole crowbar thing happens. Jason blows up, mom blows up as well. Batman says they're too late. The Joker is solidified as the worst human on ever exist.
Yes.
But it is what it is. But that's very important. I think it's important that the season kind of ends there. And also, Ra's al Ghul apologizes to Batman.
Yes.
Is important because he's like, I wanted to stop you, but I did not mean to kill you. So, that is very... Because he obviously knows the value that family has in his life because he has a daughter, whether, he's like he's 600 or whatever, but like he still understands what it's like being a father, and to lose that person would be, mind-boggling. So he's like, my bad, I brought in the homicidal clown. That's a me problem. I apologize. Next time we'll work around this. Batman's like,
next time
there won't be a next time. There won't be a next time. It completely goes away from that, and I think now that Batman doesn't have a Robin, this is kind of the perfect window for going the Killing Joke, because though that is like an out of continuity storyline,
who cares?
There's no Robin in it, but obviously Barbara Gordon's already been Batgirl, and this is the perfect time to kind of squeeze that in. I think that kind of goes forward.
I don't know if this is where you're going with this, but I love the idea of his tie with Nightwing is done. Like Dick Grayson is out of his life seemingly forever at this point. His second Robin is dead. Barbara Gordon gets shot in the back. Like he is at his lowest point ever, and then Bane shows up.
No, we're not.
Okay.
Close. No. I like that. The only thing about that is that what kind of like, it kind of doesn't work with the whole time with the Tim Drake timeline, but it does. I do like that though. I do like that because
obviously Azrael tries to take up the mantle next. He's a little too brutal with it. I feel like if Tim Drake was, I feel in my head, I feel it makes the most sense if he's in between Robins, because he wouldn't have a Robin to kind of, or maybe
pick up.
Or maybe it would make sense for Tim Drake to kind of butt heads with Azrael. Whatever. Like, just the idea of Batman being at his lowest point already when Bane shows up. If I don't know, that works for me, but keep going.
Well, no, I mean, it kind of, it does. Well, I kind of was kind of flippant about that because I was kind of interested because you have to like there are those essential storylines you just kind of have to have like and that's one of them obviously and a lot of them don't have a certain Robin in them so it's like okay how do I do this is like our main prime gap to do this but it's like do I do the Killing Joke and do I do the whole Nightfall and do I do like it's like how much of this do I fit in so I do like the idea of Nightfall I kind of did want to sneak it in but it's also like with Tim Drake kind of because like it's not because it's like and I think it's because like since he's still like not grown up it's still you still need a Batman and obviously Dick Grayson is like no like hard pass and you just had a Robin get killed so it doesn't make sense to just add another Robin just all right Robin you got this like so I think that would be with like Azrael because he's with whole I forgot what his secrets is. So many secret societies and one thing I learned very quickly. I'm like I forgot what his thing is called, but they've been like watching that they've been like watching Gotham with Bane showing up and everything. I think that's very important. And I think what's also important with getting Bane right is Bane is not just giant dude. He's a super smart tactician, excellent martial artist, basically juiced up Batman.
Yes.
Like I think that's what's really important because so many continuities kind of miss this. And I think that's what's really important here because like it makes sense that he can go toe to toe with Batman, but the Venom is actually the Venom, which is kind of more what he sees more of a strength, is actually becomes his weakness because it also distorts his mind, his cognitive ability. So he doesn't think as keenly as he would when he's on it, but he can punch through a wall, so who cares? But I think that's a big thing. But I do want that storyline to come after the Killing Joke here because I do think that's important to have that whole obviously Barbara Gordon gets shot, the whole Oracle thing happens, the Killing Joke is there. I think it's the perfect time to have the Killing Joke because it's right after this whole Jason Todd thing. Obviously, the Joker is not Batman's favorite person by any means. And with the ambiguous thing of the joke, you can really make it ambiguous because you don't really know because if there was ever a time he was going to kill the Joker right now.
Yes.
So I think that's very well placed in that regard. But it would depend on how we want to go about it. But I think that would be like the move in terms of. But I do like the idea of Nightfall. Now that you said that, I kind of do like that idea. But okay,
I mean, keep going with your original plan. Obviously, it's not final or anything. Just gotta keep.
Oh no! At this point, I'm just throwing Batman storylines around. It started out very specific, like episode numbers, dates, ages, and everything. And then it's just kind of like, and then this guy shows up, and then this shows up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it. Yeah, but the Joker, we have his whole thing going on. Obviously, kills Jason Todd. Obviously, and I think I might even do the whole like Death in the Family and the Killing Joke in the same season. I know those are two of the biggest storylines, but I think that would really cement the Joker.
Yes.
Just together, like it would be like his mid-season thing would be the Death in the Family, and then Killing Joke is kind of the finale. And it would make sense that at the end, if he gets killed or not killed, depending on what you think happens at the end of the actual graphic novel, then that's a perfect thing. But if he doesn't show up, you know what happened. But of course, it's the Joker. So
but there are 3 Jokers. But anyway, so what other one can do on this?
Side note. What do you think?
We're not doing that. No.
We're not doing that.
We're not doing 3 Jokers. It's not. No, it's so dumb.
Okay.
So dumb.
Okay. We don't have time. We'll make a new podcast about that.
Okay.
Oh God. All right. Okay.
Sorry about
it. I just need to know. Like, what in the world? But anyway. So yeah, the Joker may or may not get killed at the end of that season. At this point, like you said, Robin's dead. Dick Grayson does not want anything to do with you ever again. Barbara Gordon is now paralyzed. Like, we are at the point where it's just like, dude, what's going on? But Batman is super down. He's pretty much in that like super brutal phase. Casually cripples people at this point. Doesn't even care. Like, and he's kind of, and like people are noticing this, and then obviously Tim Drake. Tim Drake is the next person in this line who's like, okay, I've noticed this. This is crazy. And Tim Drake is able to deduce that Bruce Wayne is Batman through Dick Grayson being Robin, because in the comics it's like Dick Grayson wasn't famous for being the only person who could do like a quadruple flip in the air or something like that. And that, which I don't even know if that's, I should have looked that up. I don't even know if that's a real thing or not, but it sounds ridiculous. Okay. But I mean, but again, it's Robin. And then so the way I did the ages at this point, like Tim Drake is not like near the same age as Dick Grayson. Like Tim Drake is like, I can't even do the
like
math.
Like 18, 20, or...
Yeah, like he's like, we first meet him when he's like 17, because like he can't just be a kid. So like I kind of mixed his origins with a little bit of what they do in like Rebirth, New 52 with a little bit of the original, because like part of it is like, you know, he was in the crowd during the Haley Circus, which I'll still make a thing, but he's like 4. Like that's one of his first memories. Like is like, because like my first memory, I remember I was like 4 years old. So like that's like the first thing I remember, like I saw this kid do this crazy super flip, and then of course, you know, a couple years later, Batman and Robin are doing their thing, and then this, you know, Robin does this crazy super flip, and he's kind of like, I have seen this before, you know, and like that memory especially sticks out to him. So as a younger age, he kind of picks up, okay, well that kid looks about the right age. That could be, what was that guy's name? Look him up. Dick Grayson. Yeah, his parents are orphaned. He actually lives in Gotham. He lives with Bruce Wayne. You know, Bruce Wayne figures it out.
Interesting.
You know? Yeah, and the kid, and like Tim Drake is a prodigy, like smart with computers. Like his whole thing is computers also. So it makes sense he could do some research and look it up. So he knows as a kid that Bruce Wayne, and like because he knows that Robin is Dick Grayson, that's why he strives to become a gymnast. So that's his whole thing. So at that time he's like 16, 17. He realizes Batman's gone on this, you know, not killing, but basically almost killing streak. And he's like, okay, he needs a Robin. But he's not just going to go to Bruce Wayne's front door and be like, hi, I'm your Batman. So he goes to Bloodhaven, and it's Nightwing now. This is the first time we actually see Nightwing, not Robin, not Dick Grayson, Nightwing specifically. Finds Nightwing, tells him that he needs to go back to being Robin, being Dick Grayson, working with Batman. He's like, no, that's a terrible idea because Batman is a terrible person. And he's like, it can't be that bad. And he's like, well, look what happened to the last Robin who said that. And awkward. But so anyway, Tim Drake goes back to Gotham, tries to talk to Batman. Batman has no part of it. Just lost a partner, and another partner's paralyzed, and everyone hates me. I'm not doing this. But Alfred also realizes that Bruce Wayne is spiraling. Not just Batman. Bruce Wayne is like spiraling to like he's depressed. He's probably drinking at this point. Like he is circling the drain, basically, emotionally and mentally. So yeah, he needs a son. He needs a Robin. Basically, Tim Drake decides, all right, I can do this. Help me. I can help you. Tries to get in it, and then Batman originally protests, but he's like, you know what? I'm with you. You know what? Whatever. He needs my help because Tim Drake's parents end up being in witness protection because they like find a crime that Two-Face or somebody did. Right. And then they have to move to who knows where because of witness protection. So, of course, you know, that means, hey, I don't have parents anymore. You know what that means. He gets adopted. And we just add that to the list of random kids Bruce Wayne has adopted for some reason. And then, of course, after a year of training, he decides that I can have a new Robin. So this Robin doesn't actually become Robin until about 18 years old. But at this point, we're used to seeing Robin as an older individual anyway, so it works. So that happens. But, of course, because comic books, now that Robin's been replaced, like tradition shows, the last Robin isn't okay with that. So back from literally the grave comes the Red Hood. That's a whole thing. He ends up taking over all the gangs. He starts killing criminals. Straight up killing, no trial, no jury. Just knocks them off, picks them off. And of course, Batman's like, that's not cool. But before Batman can find the Red Hood finds Batman a la Robin, kidnaps him, beats the crap out of him, doesn't
Mhm.
want to get replaced, and that's not good because. Okay, where do I go with this?
I could. So, quick note. I
Go
could
ahead.
easily see in Under the Red Hood movie. There's that scene where Batman confronts Jason, and he's like, and Bruce is like, "Why did you do this? Why? Because he like." And then he like hits the door open because you left him alive, and Joker's just in
Yeah,
the closet.
yeah,
In this story, because like you said, you left it open ended about whether or not Joker actually died at the end of season 6, right? Yeah, like
hmm
at
that's
the final confrontation, this similar thing happens. The door opens up. Joker's like, "How's it
alive.
going?"
Yeah,
Like, you
yeah,
left
no,
him
and
alive.
like that's the thing. You thought he might have been dead, and he's just there, and
Yep.
you're just like, oh hey.
Yep. Yep.
I think that'd be good.
It's
And I
like
think that would add a
because
lot of shock value. That's
yeah,
really
like
good.
we as the audience were shocked the first time. We Batman potentially could have killed him off screen. We weren't even sure, but it was
Hmm.
after Jason died, and then he almost killed Barbara Gordon back to back. So then it's also like we're kind of on Jason's side. It's like we assumed you killed him anyway, but then you didn't. Like, why didn't you? But he's still like that's. I
So
think
good.
that's cool. Yeah.
That's a great ad. I'm putting that in. Great job.
Mm.
Thank you. We're like by the time this is done, this is gonna be amazing. But like,
Yes.
like I'm taking credit for ideas that already exist, but it's
Uh-huh.
fine. But
Inspired by.
inspired by. Well, see, if this was a movie or a TV show, this would be epic. But no, it's fine. But anyway, yeah. There's this whole Red Hood scene, and I think that scene can definitely happen. But I think Tim Drake is also in this
Yeah.
scene just because he's been kidnapped by the Red Hood. Batman has to stop Jason, and there's the Joker again somehow for some reason. And then
Mhm.
like everyone should be shocked that the Joker's alive. Like even Tim Drake's like, what? like,
Like what? Yeah.
but you had the resident Robin killer just around, and you weren't even gonna tell me. Were you not gonna mention this to anyone? And
Mm.
like that whole thing happens. Batman has to, of course, go through the whole thing, take down the Red Hood. Batman. Event, it's like, how did you come back? What happened to you? And of course, Ra's al Ghul is like, hey man, my bad with the kid thing. I'm gonna go and dig up the corpse, take the body, dump that in the old Lazarus pit,
See what
and of
happens.
course, because that's what nice guys do. We bring back your dead sons from the dead. That's what
Yeah.
us gentlemen do.
Mm.
But of course, the Lazarus pit makes him crazy because it doesn't work the same when you're already dead versus when you're dying.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of goes a little deranged, gets the weird streak in his hair for some reason,
Sure.
and I don't know what that's. Honestly, that's just so they can tell the Robins apart. That's all
Yeah.
it's for. You cannot argue anything else. They can say, "Oh, it's gonna be like raced with the no." It's just so he has a finishing feature. Like
Uh-huh.
that's it. Because the whole Red Hood gun thing wasn't enough to make him stand
Kevlar
out.
vest, the Red Hood.
Yeah,
Yeah. No.
that wasn't enough. So he had to add a little extra something. But
Mhm.
anyway, that all happens. That all happens. Batman beats the Red Hood, but the Red Hood escapes or like off-screen silhouettes or something. He doesn't get captured.
Yeah.
He gets away. Batman lets him go because it is his son, even though it's you know, hates him, is a criminal. But it's my kid. I'll let him go.
Yeah.
He gets this one. Everyone's like, "What the heck, Batman?" Because how dare? Like, why would you let this happen? And that whole thing happens, and then it's crazy. So that happens,
Mhm.
and then this is when after that happens, after Tim Drake goes Tim Drake stays with him. Dick Grayson goes back to Bloodhaven. Jason Todd's obviously gone. Barbara comes in as Oracle to kind of help out.
Mhm.
But this is kind of where Nightfall happens, where
Great.
yeah, obviously Batman kind of has some issues with his back. A little bit. Ice yacht's not enough to save him.
No.
And the thing here is, obviously, for the third time, it's like, hey, you want to be Batman? Dick Grayson is like, leave me alone. And continues to not be Batman. Tim Drake is like, well, I could be Batman. But, again, no, because you're like 19. You're still a kid. You can't be Batman. And it's like, okay, well, what about this guy? Azrael is kind of around. And I know, originally, John Paul Valley was, hired by Batman or something like that. Or, to replace it, or he kind of showed up or something, but then he went crazy.
Yeah.
That
I don't really like
I don't
Gene Paul
either.
Valley.
Yeah, I don't either. I feel like that was kind of an added character, and that's kind of where I was going with this because instead of making it like a, as Rosa kind of shows up here, what I decided to do instead was I kind of brought, I kind of brought, how like how like the reign of the Superman storyline after the death of Superman, like just random people show up claiming to be Superman.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I wanted to do with Batman here.
Okay.
So like, you have Red Hood shows back up, but he's as Batman with guns, killing people again. Obviously, that's a thing, and I think you do have like a Azrael type character. I think it can be Azrael, but I don't want him to do the same role he did last time. Show up also, but also here you have Damian show up because
just out of nowhere, just out of nowhere,
out of nowhere, like wait a minute. Like, you're just doing it, and it's this kid, this like 10-year-old,
kid with a hood and a sword, just coming out of nowhere, cutting dude.
Goes out of work with a sword, goes to work, and you're just like, what? Like everyone is going crazy. And it's crazy because no one's actually Batman. So as the time goes on without Batman, everyone's like, I'm gonna be Batman. So eventually we're gonna put it where Damian's kind of around. They figure out, okay, who is this guy? Him and Talia show up. Bruce, still, crippled, is like, this is my kid, and it's like, well, you remember that one time, because Batman, kind of knows, but kind of, how you kind of do, but you kind of don't, like, you don't know what happened, and she was like, that's your kid. He was like, and then it was like, oh, that does, he's like, well, that does look exactly like you, and there was that one time where, and, because I kind of did the math here, and it should be about 10 or so years since that was brought in. So that should be about right. And then Damian shows up. Damian pretty much wants to be like, you know what? Batman's down, so I'm going to take up the role of Batman. It's like, you are a child. Everyone's kind of like, you're a kid. Even though he is some master assassin, he's a kid. He can't do it himself.
He's not even he's not even like a Tim Drake, 18, 19-year-old kid.
No, he is a
literal child.
He is a literal 10-year-old. He has not hit puberty. Like, that is the whole thing. Yeah. So anyway, you've got the Azrael Batman going on. You've got the Jason Todd Batman going on. So Tim Drake's like, you know what? Forget this. I'm the only one who actually can be Batman, other than Batman, or maybe Dick, but he doesn't pick Dick, but he's being So, so anyway,
you could probably get away with a lot of jokes like that, but just saying his name, that's funny.
I think that's a great joke. That we're gonna use that a lot. but he's gonna dress up as Batman. He's gonna be, I'm the real Batman, and he's actually going to beat Azrael Batman or whatever. And we're kind of just gonna let him go because I do like Azrael kind of, but I feel like it's a lot more plot development because we are Jason Todd Robin back, and he whips Tim Drake, Batman, like destroys the dude. And of course, it's like, okay, we haven't seen anyone in this amount of time. We haven't seen Tim in this much time, and then they find him, and then it's like, he's like, and then Nightwing feels bad because he feels like, all right, I feel like, my little brother, so to speak, because they all are adopted.
Yeah.
So he's like, he kind of feels like the older brother who just kind of left all his brothers behind. And he's like, all right, let me come back and fix this. So as Nightwing comes back to Gotham, goes to Tim Drake's last known location, is like, all right, it's like, come to Gotham Central Station or whatever. And there you've got Red Hood Batman just waiting on him. And then they have the craziest fight ever because, it's the battle for the cow. It can't be a weak sauce fight. Like, it's got to be ridiculous. But eventually, wait, hold on. I think I'm done. Oh yeah. Okay, no. Okay, this is what happens. No, Damian also tracks Tim, goes to fight Red Hood first, gets basically shot in the chest, almost dies. But of course, Alfred, is basically the medical marvel. But I am adding in Leslie Tompkins because I think she's a not very known character, but she's like the family doctor along with
Okay.
Alfred, because I feel like it's a little ridiculous that Alfred can do open heart surgery and is like a spy and is like all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So I think you need to add that a little bit.
Mm.
And then, Damien's basically bleeding out. Tim's still got the crap up. Then, Jason and Dick have the ultimate fight of who will become Batman. Dick wins, but barely. But, it's crazy. And then after all that, he's like, look, Jason, I'm sorry. I know we never got off on the right foot, but it wasn't really our fault. I didn't really hate you for being you. It's more that. But then Jason's just like, no, forget it. You can be Batman. I don't want anything to do with this anymore. He's kind of just gone. And then it pretty much, Dick finally decides that, like, I can't trust anyone else to do this, so unfortunately, I have to become Batman.
Yep.
So Dick Grayson becomes Batman, but, Tim Drake is, like, 20, so he's like, you're not going to be my Robin because, dude, you're, like, basically, like, an equal at this point.
Mm.
So Tim Drake is like, well, I'm going to go find Jason or something, and then he takes off. Because originally he goes looking for Batman when Batman dies, but
Right.
I didn't really want to do the whole Batman dies just because that's a lot. He dies for reasons outside of just Batman universe.
Yeah, having Nightfall be the thing that causes the battle for the cowl, I think, is a very nice escalation.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking, too, because I was like, how can I make this work better? And that was kind of how it worked. Well, not work better, but, like, I can't just add in an Apocalypse Darkseid battle.
Or, yeah,
with
or, like,
just...
you can't just have BVS happen in season 6.
Right.
It just doesn't work.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there has to be a little more to it than that. I feel like in the context of what I am limited to, I think that was the best move I could have made. And, yeah, so basically Bruce Wayne is still kind of healing, but until he's better, Dick Grayson is Batman, Damien becomes Robin, and Tim Drake goes off to find Jason or something, and Oracle's also there. But that's pretty much and that's pretty much as far as I wanted to go with it.
Okay.
Just because there's a lot more characters, but that would be a lot more comics, and I'm at the point where I just didn't.
Yeah,
Wow.
and then, like, if after this, 8-season series, they wanted to kind of keep going, but, like, they wanted to distinguish the Nightwing part of it, they could have a sequel, like a sequel series called like Nightwing and Robin or something.
Right. That's kind of what I want to do. Like, kind of like when Nightwing's gone, if they want to, if like how the CW has other shows and he comes in and like stuff like that, that would be fine. And like, okay, what was Red Hood up to these times? Or like even when Robin leaves the first time, like he originally leaves for the Teen Titans, and it's like obviously. In just my Batman story, I can't just say, oh yeah, also all the Teen Titans exist. Like, it's kind of just like, but if they wanted to do it, they could. And like, there is Justice League stuff because like, in the newer iteration, Superman kind of gives Dick Grayson that idea to be Nightwing, believe it or not, and that kind of they have this like crazy friendship I never knew about. And I was like, dude, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's
but,
awesome.
Yeah, but no, limiting to only Batman stuff. This is like what I came up with. So it's a little,
the
a lot.
I don't know if you mentioned this, but did Azrael or anyone beat up Bane? Was Bane's thing finished?
That is true. Yeah, that is true. I would probably say Jason probably did it just because he's kind of taking over. I don't want to say he killed Bane because I like Bane being around. And Bane probably, you can't just shoot Bane when he's big like that, so.
You could, it wouldn't do much, but you could.
That's what I'm saying, like, we would just kind of like, just make him more mad, but yeah, I think pretty much I would say he takes out Bane, and like other people kind of like the more Jason Batman because he's actually getting the job done per se, because again, he's at the point where it's like, yeah, criminals getting got, because I have died. I die. That's a good enough reason to kill me. But yeah, I know that it's rough. There's a lot to it, and I know a lot of edges need to be fine tuned. But
hey, we're not screenwriters. We just love comics.
That's what I'm saying.
Basically, HBO hire this man. He knows what he's doing.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's just like, and I guess this took like what a couple weeks to come up with this. Like you know what I'm saying? Like people like you have these like movie franchises, and it's just like, how did you do this? Like, did you even research this
like
stuff?
These people are getting $250 million to make a good story, and they just can't. And like, you here pick up one comic book and like, that's good, do that. Like, it's not that hard. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's my thing. Like, I am not saying like I have not read every Catman comic book ever. Obviously, there are literal thousands. I don't have the time or the lifespan, but. Like, the big ones, you put them in, okay, how could this work with it? And it doesn't have to be exactly comic accurate. because some things in comic books just don't even make sense. So yeah, but like just make it work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was fantastic. Good job.
Thank you. I tried. I decided my brother, he helped me out on this a good bit. We were watching the animated series for the last couple of months, and he was like, we got to write a Batman show. And this was kind of perfect.
Yeah.
Time with that.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right.
Oh.